Great. Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order at 7:06 p.m. Ms. Bell, a roll call.
Good evening, everyone. Trustee Ojapinti,
Here.
Trustee Salahuddin,
Here.
Trustee Garrett,
Present.
Vice President Lee,
Here.
President Tahada.
Here. And Ms. Presta, you said there was a change to the agenda?
Yes, I'd like to have item 8C1 moved up in the agenda just prior to 8B1.
Okay. With that change, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good report. Mr. Ojapinti.
Yeah. Can you hear the static? Yeah. I was gonna say.
Oh, is
Yeah.
there static? No, I think you're fine.
Okay. Thank you. So it is June 15th, and of course we know the state is reopening on many levels. So just in terms of that, it's kind of a wonder we're already here. It's already summertime, and it's been good to see students graduate. I was just at Shasta, Summit Shasta Public School, the high school's graduation was last weekend. It was good to see them graduate over at Westmore. And yeah, just, in step with the graduations this season. I know there's still another we have coming up, and looking forward to that because we're not done yet. Also was on our final elected officials COVID-19 call. As some of us may have been on that, just good to kind of hear some of the progress we've made across the county through some of the ups and downs in navigating the pandemic so far, because though we're not out of it, certainly we've come a long way, and some of those public services, including housing security, I think are important to get in place moving forward. A lot of our community is concerned about in terms of rental relief and, extension of the eviction moratorium and even just rental relief in general. Just good to see that our county is addressing it, and looking forward to more updates in terms of access to shelter and housing moving forward. Also, CSBA had the API School Board Member Associations panel, and really a meeting yesterday to discuss equity and a lot of the issues facing, of course, the Asian American and Pacific Islander communities. So it was good to hear from our current CSBA president, Dr. Heredia, and not just her, but obviously Amy Koo with her facilitation of it, and a lot of local elected officials discussing just not only the issues, but some of the solutions that we have here in addressing issues in our community that we should be addressing all together as communities across the state and nation. So that was really empowering to hear that. In addition, summer school, good to see the summer school starting, and that, obviously we're returning to school in many ways, but it's really empowering to see that, students are able to return to campuses in different capacity, and that we're getting ready to transition back into the fall, even at June 15th. And I guess the last thing, just to note, June 12th is also known as Loving Day, which is the day we celebrate because of the Supreme Court decision that was made for a couple who fought discriminatory laws around marriage, around interracial marriage in particular. And so as it is Pride Month, and understanding that discrimination pervades many levels, including gender and marriage and even race, as a mixed person of color myself and a product of interracial, marriage and families, just to promote and acknowledge that, and to empower our community to speak up and kind of embrace that and understanding that. And I'm looking forward to those discussions as they are part of higher education and ethnic studies. San Francisco State does have mixed race classes and just started that about 2 years ago. And so just seeing that in the movement at that pace is really empowering to see as we address these issues in our own district, and getting ready for ethnic studies next year. So that's it for me, and I'll pass it to the next trustee.
Thank you very much. Ms. Salahuddin?
Hello. So I first want to thank the Jefferson site and the custodial staff for all their continued work in support of not only the testing, community testing, but also the vaccination events. We had our second shot vaccination event, and we only had 6 no-shows, which was really great. And, you know, the custodial staff is just amazing, helping with setup and breaking down. And I also want to thank Sutter Health and the Bay Area Health Advisory Council and the Reach Coalition for helping to get the vaccination site at Jefferson. They're doing another vaccination event on the 19th at Bayshore Elementary from 11 to 1 p.m. And if you would like to sign up for that, you can email me directly at kalimas@gmail.com, and I can put you on the list. So very thankful that we are getting more shots in arms and getting closer to herd immunity. While we have it in county, we still don't have it in Daly City, and especially in certain, if you disaggregate the data, the Latini Hispanic community and the Pacific Islander community and African American Black community are also low, usually around 50 to 60% vaccinated. So we need to get those numbers up. And it's not for a lack of not wanting the vaccination. It's usually just those tend to be our poor communities, and they just don't hear about it. They're not on social media like everyone else is. And that's usually where the vaccination events are publicized. So I think it's anytime we email it out from a trusted advisor, you usually fill that list up. So I hope we can continue to do these small type of events and get more shots in arms. That's all for me.
Thank you. Ms. Garrett?
I just wanted to say quickly to thank Trustee Salahuddin for her continued work into getting everyone tested and still trying to get everybody vaccinated, especially in the community that's needed the most. So thank you for continuing that work. I appreciate it very much, as well as I'm sure everybody else here does. I don't have too much report, except that it was really nice to see Trustee Lee and Superintendent Presta at the state reopening today celebration. So it was nice to see familiar faces and just be able to gather together and with our mask. And I had to ask Trustee, I was like, well, do I need to put my mask on or take it off? Like, there's still confusion, right? So, but I think just the road to get there is paved for us, and that, as long as we follow the guidelines, we can continue to open up the schools and this, the businesses, so everybody can get back to work and get the education that they really need. So, and that's it for me. Thank you.
Kelly?
Yep, I was also on that same elected call that Mr. Pinty spoke about earlier. So I echo a lot of those, some of the report out that you shared earlier. Also, yep, at the reopening the state event today, which was nice to see a lot of people out there, and I think it was a beautiful day. Just nice to sort of just connect and see some people for the first time in a really, really long time. So it's good for my son Hank to be able to pop in there as well and to say hello to a bunch of people since he's in town for a couple of days. Also, it was good to be at the March for Black and Brown Lives on Saturday down in Redwood City, where our own Trustee Salahuddin was the final speaker that morning, and with powerful personal words that she shared with the group. And so thank you for sharing. I know I'd heard so much. I mean, I know your story so well, but it was wonderful to hear you share it with so many different people on Saturday, and it really made an impact when I looked around the crowd and you could see how impactful it was for so many who listened. And with my daughter who works in the state assembly visiting us this weekend, she said, "Yep, I'm going back into the Capitol for the first time next week." So they're opening up their assembly offices starting on Monday. So as she said, at least I don't have to have my air conditioning running in my apartment. I can just go into the Capitol building and use the government's air conditioning. So that is all for me.
Okay. I don't have a lot to report. I have to apologize right now because I hurt my back today, that I feel like it's really important for me to be here. So I'm gonna try my best. It was really great to get a tour of our employee housing. Wow. Wow. Thank you, Ms. Phillips, for giving us a tour and just amazing, just amazing. I'm really, really excited about it. Boy, had no idea. It's just really amazing. I'm so excited for this, for our staff and our teachers, really excited. I do want to say that I want to apologize to, everyone in this room, everyone on Zoom I feel like I need to do a better job as president managing the meetings. Because sometimes lately, some of the meetings have been unwieldy, and I should actually, probably, I tend to want people to be heard and to talk, but sometimes when we talk over each other, no one's getting heard. So I should actually I feel I should do a better job of managing that and slowing things down, maybe calling on people, managing that a little better. So you'll find that I may start to do that more. And I don't want you to get offended. I just want to manage the meeting so that we can stay respectful and have, have a very meaningful, productive meeting. And so I don't want to be too formal, but I want to actually try to be like a traffic controller, be a little better at that, directing traffic. So with that, I have nothing else to report. Ms. Presta, Superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you, President Tejada. Quickly, I just wanted to thank everybody involved in summer school. Dr. Marenko, and gosh, there's many people who have worked very hard to make sure that summer school goes well. And that's going well. So that's exciting. We are already planning for the fall. So believe it or not, school just finished and we had some celebrations and now we're planning for the fall. And I'm grateful for my team. We have only one school board meeting scheduled for the summer. That's on July 20th. But we may come and ask the board to have a quick meeting to just approve new hires because we've got a lot of hiring that still needs to be done. And finally, we've got a board study session scheduled for this Saturday from 9 until 1. And we're going to be working on board governance. I'm looking forward to that. And then I just wanted to say I had a really nice time, number one, touring the faculty and staff housing, which is absolutely beautiful, with the board and executive cabinet last week. Thank you, Ms. Van Raphorst and Ms. Phillips. It was really exciting to me. And then also today at the opening that Supervisor Canepa, the party that he threw, was actually really, really nice to see a lot of people there. And Daly City, actually Colma, gave us a sunny day. So that was really nice. Thank you. That's it for me.
Do you have anyone from AFT here? No. So no.
I'm sorry, what?
AFT report?
No, there's no report
Okay.
tonight.
All right. So I'm going to move on to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Mr. Ochapinti?
Yeah, actually, a few items I wanted to pull for discussion. 5A22, 5B11. So that's Valencia testing, and then EduPoint with Synergy in our cloud software. And 5C.
Say again, 5A22.
Yeah, 5B11. And 5C36 is work with HKit. Just those three. Thank you.
5A22, 5B11, and 5C36.
So with those items pulled, do we have a motion to approve consent?
So move with those changes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
So I do have one question that doesn't affect the approval, but are we going to get a presentation from CRE at some point?
From
CRE? The CRE is the consultant for the community responsive education. Approve their contract.
Are we going to have I'm sorry.
Ask them
Ms.
to
Bobka?
present towards the fall semester.
Okay, yeah, it doesn't have to be like this is summer now, and I know, but at some point, if they could come. Yeah.
Once we convene our task force, and then we will also ask them to come in and present.
Thank you.
Okay, Siri will present in the fall. Okay. All right. Let's see. So we'll go with the pulled items. 5A22. So, Mr. Ochapinti, did you have a particular question regarding that item?
Yeah, so for 5A22, this contract with Valencia, I was curious to know how this is going to, I guess, work in tandem with, if at all, with our contract with Inspire, which Ms. Basuino had just described a couple weeks prior. Yeah, if you want to give some background to that and how that will line up with that.
Yeah, so the difference between the two is Inspire brings people in to do the testing for us. And so that's a lot easier for us to handle at that specific site for right now. And I don't know how long their grant is going to last. With Valencia, they have a different grant. And so they will be in business for a while. So I was looking for something that could last long term. So with them, we're just going to use them for the district office staff currently, and then practice using them. And then if we need to continue testing, it might be Valencia that we use at the school sites.
Got it. Thank you. And so I guess my follow-up question would be with Inspire, how long is our contract with them again? And are we projecting to just kind of see how things work on an ongoing basis, or?
Yeah, so the difference with Inspire is it was more used for athletes that you bring them to them all at one time. And so I can't figure out a way for us to test students all together during the school day. It's okay to do that in summer school because they have, they're there for 4 hours. So for the teachers to kind of bring them out to class, and then everybody who's there to test can test. I just can't figure out a way that we would do that during school hours with a huge group of students. So it's just a matter of, how long will they be in business? What is more convenient for our staff or our students? So I'm just trying to play with both to figure out what's going to work best for us.
Got it. Sounds good. Yeah, as long as we have a sustainable option.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 5B11. Authorization to move
We want to
synergy.
just approve this one. We want to have a motion to approve as we go along.
Yeah, move to approve.
Does the board want to do it that way? Sure. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so we have a motion to approve.
Move to approve 5A22.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 5B11, authorization to move Synergy SIS from on-premises to cloud hosting. Mr. Ochapinti, was your question?
Yeah, thank you. So I see Mr. Meyer there. I was going to ask, I know we were experiencing difficulty with our district with email and with our hardware last summer. And so good to see that we've had progress over the year. And apparently, I guess a little bit of background on EduPoint and its interface with Synergy. And with this, it sounds like it'll be a sustainable option. I'm wondering, have we experienced any data loss, or are we seeing any are we expecting better results other than financial from working with EduPoint?
So, yeah, I mean, in talking to them, like 90% of the new districts that are coming out are all going to the cloud-hosted option. It takes servers out of our hands and puts them into their hands. They handle all the backups, all of the patch updates, and they actually have our data stored in multiple locations around the country. And it's also a pretty good deterrent for like ransomware or a cyber attack, because they have a lot more resources and 24/7, 365 support available to combat those things, which district of our size and with our funds, we really don't have that ability. So it's kind of a strategic move, and it also saves us money.
Right on. Thank you for that. I guess my only other question, maybe this would be for Superintendent Presta. Would this, or Mr. Meyer, if you'd like to answer, would this affect staffing or hours in any way with RIT or no?
No, it won't. They'll still continue to have the same access to the back end of Synergy. Nothing will change in that respect. It's simply moving our data from inside our network to the cloud. So it's not going to take hours away from anybody or anything like that.
Got it. Sounds good. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? No?
Motion to approve 5B11.
One favor?
Aye.
Aye. On to 5C36. Let's go down here. HK Architect's fee adjustment to Oceana High School classroom renovation. Mr. Ochapinti, what is your question here?
Yeah, so I emailed to ask this question to maybe just to review that information that I received. Just some background, I guess, on our project or the work being done with HK. I know there's more than one project, and apparently there are, how is it phrased here? There are 3 projects, right? A, B, and C. And so maybe, Ms. Van Raphorst or even Superintendent Pressa, if you want to just review that information. I'm not sure if we can screen share the kind of summary of the work being done. My primary concern is what the input from staff at Oceana had on the project and how that's moving forward. But if you want to review the background information first, that would be helpful. Thank you.
So I'll turn that over to Ms. Van Raphorst. You wish for her to review the entire document that she shared with the board?
I don't require that.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't, is that what you're asking for, Trustee Achapinti?
Yeah, there's a table, which is a very, seems like a pretty comprehensive table, at least a good summary of the new district office and adult education building, project A, project B being Oceana, and C, a master planning needs assessment. But I think that's important information for background since, we are reviewing related items on this agenda.
So are you talking about an email that went out? Is that what you're saying, this table that you're talking about?
I emailed Ms. Van Raphorst and it was a response, yes. So I would like, yeah. So if Ms. Van Raphorst wanted to review that, I think it's important just to understand for context.
I don't think it's pertinent to the specific item on consent. We should talk about the specific item on consent, not a review of all the work that HTID is doing, since we do have HTID here to present to us later in the agenda with regards to one of those projects.
Yeah, so we have to actually stick to the merits of the item that we're discussing. So that would just be the fee adjustment for Oceana High School classroom renovation.
Yeah,
So for according to the agenda, that is what we have to stick to. So is there something there that you need clarification on from Ms. Van Raphorst? So
if HKIT would like to discuss the projects they're working on in general at a later part of this meeting, that's to me pertinent. But given that we are paying more money to HKIT to complete the project, consistent with other things we're doing in the district, I understand that, but I'm just curious to know what the input has been so far so that we understand where that progress is with that project, which is pertinent.
What project?
Oceana, the one that's listed on the agenda. Yeah.
Okay, so we can't discuss the other projects. We have to discuss Oceana High School. So is there any clarification regarding this one item that you need that is not clear to you?
Sure,
or you
HKID's
would like
here.
to make clear?
Yeah, sure. HKID's here, they can respond to as well. So how is the project going and how is the input on it? And yeah, do they have any questions for us?
So Ms. Phillips is here, so she's gonna also maybe chime in. The project that's going on at Oceana High School is progressing as planned. As far as input from the staff, the project is happening because of input we received from the staff, that this was a need. And the conversations were had with the principal and the academic council and the science department. Those were the people that we specifically reached out to and gathered input from over the course of the last maybe year and a half in planning this project. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Yeah, no, I was just curious what the community input was. I know I haven't heard that back yet. Hopefully it's being implemented, I would imagine, but I would want to know where that is in that project. Maybe Jeff, Mr. Evans, I'm not sure if you want to chime in or, of course, Ms. Phillips.
I don't
understand.
I don't believe that Mr. Evans has to chime in on this.
Well, it's not a requirement, but I am asking the question. So, I mean, is there a reason why we don't want to discuss that? I'm not sure what the question is for me.
I don't understand the relevance here. I think that Ms. Van Raphorst answered your question. So I don't think that there's anything new to answer here.
So motion to approve
So-
5C.
No, well, hold on. Excuse me. Let me
I'm-
respond. Let me respond. To
I'm
President
going to
Tejada.
have to, as the president, call for a vote here because I believe that your questions have been asked.
No,
and
my question has
answered.
not been answered though, President Tejada. You know that. Nobody's answered my question. I've asked 2 people and everybody else has said
okay.
no. But I
It
haven't heard
is
from
my
them.
prerogative as president to move on and ask
Are you,
for a vote.
wait, are you asking them not to speak though? I'm asking them just for a little bit of input on what the progress is at. That's a simple question. I don't understand what the conflict is.
Ms. Van Raphorst answered that, and I believe she's qualified to answer that for you.
I asked what the input was though. I asked what the input.
In a second.
I'm sorry, there's
No,
a
please.
motion and a
No,
second on the floor.
I'm sorry, you're cutting me off in discussion. I haven't had my
This-
question answered.
okay.
That's a process
This
issue.
This
procedural
is my
issue.
prerogative as president, as chair of this body.
Mhm.
If I do not feel that there's any new information, I can call for a vote. So we have called, there is a motion on the floor. There's a second. Do we have all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Also, President Tejada, you are using procedure to manipulate the process. So please don't do that. That's not good process.
Excuse me.
You are. You
As
are.
board president, it is I have the authority to say who gets to speak for how long and when.
Not always, no.
So,
That's
yes.
actually not true.
No,
That's not
that is
always.
true, and I will cite that for you. So I would ask at this time for you to be respectful of that process.
Oh, no, I'm being completely respectful. I'm just citing the process for
I'm
you
not
so you
going to
can
go
reference
back
it
and
later.
forth with you. I've already
That's
explained
fine.
it to you. So we're moving on. We have public comment?
We have no public comment this evening.
Item number 7, discussion items. So we have 7A1, the update on design development for the new district offices and adult education building. Ms. Van Raphorst.
Thank you. Good evening, President Tejada, members of the board. On August 18th, 2020, the JUHSD Board of Trustees approved a contract with HKIT Architects to design and develop our new district office and adult education buildings. A brief update on this project was provided in February, and tonight a representative from HKIT, Jeff Evans, is here to discuss the plan in more detail. I'd like to thank him for being here and thank his team for all of the work they've done. They have attended numerous meetings with multiple staff members, also picking up this project where Forge left off, where they had also done a much outreach. And I want to point out that we presented this to the staff yesterday, and that is why it was not made public until tonight. because we wanted the staff to see the presentation first, but this presentation will be uploaded to the public document, as soon as Ms. Bell gets a chance. And without further ado, I will pass it over to Mr. Evans.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you, JUHSD community, for inviting me here to share the project. I will go ahead and share screen. Okay, and everybody see okay?
Yes.
Yes, looks great.
There we go. Good evening, everyone. As Tina mentioned, we're here to share an update on the new district office and adult education buildings. We will just give a little recap on the project parameters. I'll call that a project overview. And then we will look at inside and outside, as well as the plans for the district office and the adult education building. We'll check in on schedule and also on process. And then we'll have a check-in on budget. So start with the project. You'll see the bird's eye view of what a completed project would look like there underneath the text. The project is located at what we often refer to as Westmore Park. And so it's on at the Westmore High School site. And as many of you know, the Westmore Park is the southern portion there, highlighted in the yellow outline. Here's the site plan showing the new buildings. And there's a couple of things just wanted to note. One is that as we start from entrance, the project connects to the sidewalks on Edgemont as well as Mariposa, and has vehicular entrances on each of those streets as well. We have a shared parking lot with lots of beautiful trees to provide shade. And to the south of that parking lot, we have shown the new district office building. You can see on the eastern or right side, the new boardroom, and then the offices to the left. As this area was used previously for outdoor amenities, including walking, we've included some walking paths and seating south of the district office, and you'll see that as well. The adult education building is on the eastern side on what is now the tennis courts. You'll see an accessible pathway down the Mariposa there, as well as the one that kind of comes up the hill. And we'll also see some of the outdoor amenities being provided to the adult education community, garden space, tables, and a athletic area. Want to just give a shout out to the JUHSD staff. Went through a wonderful process to look at the colors and the color scheme, and this was the scheme that was selected, and has really nice resonance with the colors the district has in its logo. And so you'll see these colors in the presentation, both on the inside and outside. We'll start with looking at the district office building. This is a view of the main facade that faces north towards the parking lot. And we can see on the left the beautiful new boardroom in the volume there, and the accent wall that gives a little hint to what's behind. We see nice clear story windows above that bring in natural daylight. One of the driving design goals of the project. We see the main entrance there on the main axis as you come in. And then to the right, as we mentioned with the site plan, we have the office area. On the far right, there is also a staff entrance. Here's the floor plan with a little closer view. As I mentioned, there is a primary kind of entrance in the middle. And then to one side is the district office, and to the other side are the boardroom and training rooms. We'll zoom in a little bit here. As we mentioned, the boardroom is also situated to accommodate training activities. And then across the lobby, we have the training center, which can be subdivided into the 3 rooms or joined into one big room for training activities for staff. Then we have a sort of another entrance into the district office with staff there, and reception waiting area for testing, for registration, similar to what we have now, but we'd like to think in a little better and nicer setup. Here's the office. We can see the open plan to the north side with the cubicles, and then to the south side, the enclosed offices and conference rooms and copy mail areas. Some of the building services are located to the west side, including the electrical IDF, a workshop for tech, some storage, and custodial storage. We'll note that you'll see throughout both buildings and both parts of each building gender-neutral restrooms. Here's an upstairs view, just zooming in. It has similar layout. One of the things we'll see in a bit is there's a bit of a second lobby upstairs in this area on the east side with the several conference rooms in the superintendent's area. And then, of course, at the far end, there is the kitchen and social area. One thing I didn't mention about the downstairs, which I want to mention now, is there is also an outdoor patio area for staff, both on the ground floor and then here on the second floor, we have an outdoor area as well off the kitchen social living room. Let's go ahead and see the pictures. So here's a view of the boardroom. Just want to thank Corrine and her staff, Jacob, for all the collaboration around the design of this space, and we look forward to further engagement as we refine details. As we see here, is the curved accent wall situated behind the board table. That we have the logo. Just above, we have clear stories that are just in front of the stage, and so they can let in natural light, but at the same time not drown out the board itself. There will be several monitors around the room for presentations to be seen on the sides and the back. And then we can also repurpose this room for training using those same monitors. Here's a little bit of a zoom in the plan. You can see what we just showed, and noting there's ample storage for the chairs to move in and out. Here's a view of the training room on the south side, and this shows all three rooms combined, but each room can operate independently with screens and projection equipment. And so it provides the district the opportunity to have existing groups or a large group come together for professional development. And then here's that plan again. Here's a view as you come into the district office lobby, and what will greet you there is a reception area, but also an administrative area that has supervision of the space and then lines of sight to the lobby and to the doors. Just on the other side are those registration stations as well as testing areas. As you come into the office area itself, here's a view of what this is showing the upstairs. The downstairs would be similar to where we have a light, open, airy, north-facing windows and high ceilings with nice materials for controlling sound, but also providing acoustics softening on the north side there, and then the individual offices on the south side. Each end of the building has a stair with skylight that can let light into the space. Again, daylight was a design driver, both from the perspective of health and wellness, but also just creating a better space. And this was one of the key things identified by staff. Here we have a view of the lobby or reception area just outside the superintendent's area. We can see the superintendent's assistant there just beyond the column and the different conference rooms flanking that space. And so a welcoming professional setting, staging the different conference rooms adjacent. And then here's that plan, and just sort of a reminder that this program was developed in detail with staff in terms of the number and types of spaces. And so we've been able to proceed with conversations about layout and arrangement, which has been very good. And so we've had a number of conversations with cabinet about the building as well as staff. There's that second stair. This is at the employee entrance. We can see a bicycle parking area there, and then it leads upstairs. And then this is the break room. We're optimistic that we'll have lots of sunny days in Daly City and be able to use patio there on the second floor, but we've flanked it with some nice protective walls and windows just in case it's windy. And then we have some wonderful windows again to the west side there. This is meant to be a multifunctional type space, though again, we know it needs to be able to accommodate lunch. Got lots of fridges and spaces for microwaves and toasters and those kinds of things. Shifting over to the adult ed building, we see the main facade here, which faces south. Similar inspiration in terms of design and layout to the district office, where we have this beautiful volume, in this case, the NPR that stands against the bar of the classrooms that serve our adult education community. We see the outdoor recreation amenities for adult education users and a color scheme that ties. You'll notice a little bit of white on the windows. That's the translucent daylight diffusing glazing. This does face south, and so it's very important to control sun, but at the same time, recognize the benefit of allowing that light into the classrooms. Here's the plan. Again, had some really good conversations with the AE leaders about this arrangement. The multi-purpose is shown there in the pink red. One of the opportunities with this space that's been realized is it has a little kitchenette off of that space, and there are restrooms just off of this vestibule lobby that face that vestibule lobby. And so this whole area can be cordoned off for after hours use, potential community use. You know, you can see this as a favorite space for a birthday party, that kind of thing. Then we see the adult ed administrative area in turquoise. And then as we come down the hallway, we see the classrooms as well as the adult transition classrooms. One of the key staff comments was to locate those adult transition classrooms on the far end and also adjacent to each other. And so we've been able to realize that and still work with the structural grid. As we go upstairs, we see the Pearson View Testing Center in purple, and then additional classrooms adjacent. These are what we would consider typical classrooms in the 1960s, but we've also included one set of connecting classrooms similar to what they have now, so they have the ability to bring bigger groups together, 2 classrooms as if the multi-purpose is in use. Love to show some that multi-purpose, similar touches, materials, colors as we see throughout both projects, just really making both buildings read as a part of the JUHSD community. Lots of space here for chairs to be stored. And I know that the AE community has lots of different ideas about this being open for lunch, having events, that kind of thing. Here's the view as you just come inside the doors. On the left, good glass and lines of sight to the administration area. On the right, the multi-purpose, and straight ahead, the outdoor area. Here we are inside that administrative area. And again, we're looking at kind of straight ahead and to the right glass so that adult education can see who's in and out. And then there's another set of doors that is in the hallway. This affords the district the opportunity to have folks come through this office or to come down the hallway. The main desk, welcoming reception area. And on the second floor, work very closely with Daly and consultants to look at enhancing these spaces through the series of skylights on the second floor that bring in natural light and then let light into the adjacent classrooms through these high windows. And here's a view to one of those classrooms. This is one on the north side. I have had good discussions today and are looking forward to refining further things around furniture, whiteboards, casework, that kind of thing. Wanted to now touch on schedule, and as Tina mentioned, we have concluded schematic and design development. So part of that process, we had 4 meetings with the AE community. Look forward to having some further engagement around some details, noting that we are in construction documents now, and so we are at the detail phase. We've had additional 12 conversations with the district office community, noting that there are a higher number of individualized spaces as well as apartments, and so the need for more conversations there. We are on track to submit to DSA here in the early fall, and we're estimating approval in the late spring of 2022, with the goal of starting construction in the summer of 2022. We are estimating that it would be completed the following winter of 2023, 2024. As we check in on budget, I'm sure this is something that the board and the JUHSD has been keenly focused is that, we are very aware of the volatility in the construction materials markets. The construction budget was set at 68 million. The project is currently on budget. We did estimates at both schematic design and design development, and we will do additional estimates at 50% CB and DSA submittal. And again, we are aware of the fluctuations in the construction materials market. A lot of different people have a lot of different opinions on the causes and how long it's going to last, but what our responsibility to do is monitor it and adjust as we need to. Love to go back out for questions or requests to see additional images, or see images again, I guess.
Okay, so you don't have additional images?
Sorry, I don't have additional images to see images again.
Okay, got it. I'm going to open this up to the board if you have any questions. Mr. Ochapinti?
Yeah, so thank you for the presentation. Yeah, that's a lot of work. I remember last time we saw the map and I guess the schematic, maybe a preliminary one. It was similar to this. I had questions about it at a prior meeting, but we didn't have the opportunity to explore that apparently. So my first impression is the classrooms look nice. I mean, as a teacher, I would want to work in those classrooms, right? Those are, a beautiful opportunity. I think on any given day, whether the fog's out or not, we get light. And I think just, it's something that I think a lot of staff would look forward to. That said, I guess I have a number of questions, but my first question is similar to my last question that was not answered earlier in this meeting, is around staff input. It sounds like superintendent, I cannot speak for superintendent president, but I imagine that the superintendent in our district office and staff have had input on the new DO, on the new district office. And with adult education, I will hope that the same is true as well. And I'm not sure, because we're in a pandemic, if we even had time to have an adequate or appropriate amount of time and space dedicated to getting that input, both virtually and in person. Because certainly a lot of people who go to adult school are there at night, so it's hard to reach them. In fact, we had a graduation recently that essentially was, not held because I guess we didn't have enough people that opted into graduation and so forth. So in terms of input, how much input were you able to get for both buildings so far?
Sure, thank you. And as I take the last part of the question first, we have been able to successfully work over Zoom to engage with the stakeholder groups at both buildings. That, as you we'll start with the district office, as Tina mentioned, the sort of the engagement with the district staff kind of predated and started with work before to establish program. And then when we came on board, we were able to work further with the district staff, leadership, cabinet, and the departments. And so we had 12 different engagements with district staff, again, noting, for example, some of those engagements were very specific to the boardroom or the training room or needs of the different departments. And similar, we had 4 engagements with the adult education stakeholder group, starting all the way back at programming. We had some good conversations about what program appeared to meet their needs, and then some areas where they needed additional program, and so we were able to make that adjustment. And then we worked through different layouts. One of the fun things was working with the principal about that lobby and the doors and what the lines of sight needed to be and what the access control needed to be as people came in, what would happen during the day versus what would happen in the evening. And, we went through a couple of different iterations there. And as I mentioned, overall, it is a classroom building. And so the bulk of it is classroom, but where certain key classrooms are located was definitely a thing that we got feedback on and were able to accommodate what AT community, adult transition community, was looking for, where the testing centers were, how easy they were to be able to find. And so you start big scale and big questions, and then you kind of work your way down to more detailed questions and refinement. And so we look forward to having a little more engagement with the AE community and the DO community around specific questions, for example, with locations of whiteboard, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Thank you. I guess, I have some follow-up questions. Do we want to just present
Did,
time?
I'm sorry, Ms. Pressy, you wanted to
I
respond?
just wanted to add, because trustee Achapinti asked about engagement, and there was a lot of engagement that actually happened prior to HKIT coming on board. So we worked with Forge, I don't know, at least a year, probably 2. And I know that here at the district office, we had several all staff meetings where people kind of thought really big picture about what kind of a building they wanted. And as Jeff mentioned, sort of the main thing was people wanted windows and natural lighting and a healthy feeling environment. So I feel like we gave our employees a really strong voice in what we were planning. And then the executive cabinet met with them repeatedly, talking about just placement of the buildings and thinking about the community at large and how they might be able to use the grounds and things like that. So there was an extensive amount of engagement even before HKIT came on board. That's it.
Thank you. I
You
guess
have an additional question?
I do.
Mr.
I guess,
Achapinti?
I have a few more. I mean, one, just to follow up on this, and I want to give opportunity for the trustees to ask as well, of course. So for the input on this, I remember we did have a different contractor work on it. So it's good to know that the follow through has been there with that. With respect to adult ed, I know that our students, of course, are a huge part of how we're developing our schools and not just curriculum, but of course facilities as well. So who were the stakeholder, in the stakeholder groups, who exactly was a part of that for the adult education school so far? And you mentioned moving forward. I see the timeline is there. Where will they have the opportunity to have input if they haven't thus far? This fall, and the community at large, the actual community who live there, what kind of input will they have as well?
So I think that would be a question to be answered by Ms. Van Raphorst.
Sure. So with the adult education community, we did not engage with the students directly. We did ask that the staff talk with their students and bring their perspective. So that was part of the process, is going back and forth between the staff and the students. As far as the larger community, we do plan to do, this is the first public meeting with this information being fully presented. And so I was talking with Ms. Presta about, as soon as we get our new communications director on board, would be a good time for us to have a community meeting that would be open to the neighborhood there.
Got it.
You had a
Thank
follow-up?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Van Raphorst. Yeah, I look forward to that. I think there's a lot of good input from the community there, partially because obviously Westmore Park has been a part of our community as long as I can remember. And part of that being is that's going to be part of the community there. I'm not sure who in the community may or may not know. And as this is one of the first meetings where this has been presented, but the first one in full. I guess a couple more of my additional questions kind of revolve around the park itself. I mean, a lot of us grew up, through, the city park and rec and library, playing baseball there. I know I did. And just, using the park in general. The ARC was a school there in the clubhouse, right? The clubhouse has been used for a lot of things. And so seeing a school in the school district office become part of that makes sense, but it also is an elimination of green space. And so we have some longstanding trees. They're like heritage trees. They're older than I am for sure. In the park area where per the design is a parking lot. So I'm not sure we can even take those trees down, and I'm wondering what the environmental review process would be and when the EIR might be scheduled. What can you tell us about that, Jeff?
I was going to see if the district wanted to comment on the question about CEQA.
So I will say that Daly City does not have a heritage tree ordinance. So the heritage tree ordinance is a county ordinance and only applies to county municipalities that they have governance over. The cities have governance over their CEQA obligations, and Daly City does not have a heritage tree ordinance, so that doesn't apply.
And I will add that the city of Daly City used to have an MOU with the school district to manage the park, and they decided to decommission the park at least 5 years ago. So since then, it has been left to us to manage. And as far as the CEQA process, that I'm not an expert on. Do you want to talk, Ms. Phillips, about, so we had the environmental review already, from my understanding, and then what we're going to do is present it to the board in an upcoming meeting, maybe in, because it's, I don't know if it's complete, but it's.
About a month and a half.
Yeah, probably either July or August is when that will come before the board. It will be similar to the Summit Shasta process when we did that a few years ago, that it'll be a mitigated negative declaration, which means that they will tell us what kind of things are impacted and how we plan to mitigate those impacts.
Okay, so thank you for the information. I'll say first, it's in our interest, I think, as public officials, to consider environmental protection, environmental law that's best practices. If the county has an ordinance, but the city does not, that doesn't mean that we as a district need to be working at the least, the minimum practices. I understand that a mitigated negative declaration is one thing to approach that, but I would request an EIR. I will request formally that we have an environmental impact report of the trees and the environment that we currently have in a park that the city did use for decades. And so I would think it's in our interest to do that, because I want to protect trees. I mean, I think we all do, right? Planting new ones is always a great thing, but I mean, we're losing a lot of green space as a park. So that's a first consideration. But as another consideration, those trees are like legacy trees. They've been there a long time. And so we should protect those. And I don't think personally that I would want to put a parking lot in that that takes out trees it doesn't need to. Some of those trees are in places where I think, and I would ask Jeff, maybe to consider this, we can build around. Like if you need a parking lot, we can have spaces, and certainly it already has a parking lot. But I mean, for night school, basically adult school, which has daytime and nighttime classes, I'm not sure what in addition to district office, I'm not sure what our parking needs would be. But as a best practices in urban development, parking lots are not being emphasized. They're being de-emphasized. And so what are the rest of the board members' concerns around those existing trees? I believe we should protect them, but I'd like to hear from everybody else.
Let me open it up to the board if you want to make any comments on that.
I personally have no emotion about the trees. I think per design, we have to do what's best and what's efficient for the school district. We need parking spaces, otherwise people are going to start parking in the street and that'll impact the community. So then they're going to be upset and they're not going to want to have the office there, right? So, I mean, yes, in consideration of the space that we're in, I'm sure everything is put into consideration. So I'm not going to put an emphasis on trees rather than to prioritize that on top of the welfare of what we need to do to make new spaces and have the district staff be comfortable where they're teaching and where they're doing their work, so then we can keep moving forward. So that's all I have to say about that personally.
Mr. Lee?
I would agree. There's a few things that have been jumping to mind on this. One, I mean, we've been talking about the relocation of this for a while. As Ms. Preston noted, the stakeholder input during the master planning for this with the previous firm. So a lot of input there. So we've been talking about this for a couple of years at least. And if I remember correctly, Ms. Van Raaphorst, we are also funding this both with the bond that was passed in March of last year as well as the new bond, correct?
That is correct.
That was a $28 million bond in March, and we've got another 160 roughly in November that was both passed.
That's correct.
Okay, so this has been, and that was all, and the March 20th, the March 2020 election, we specifically went to the ballot partly to include this project as part to be for the funds to be able to be eligible to be used. So So all this we've been discussing for quite some time. As far as the design goes, I think the utilization of the space of an older unused piece of land that we have currently, to use it for, one, the betterment for a great working environment for our staff, considering their current working environment in this building in which we sit. Number two, a better place for our students to attend school, which currently is in this existing building. And three, with regards to parking, I agree with Trustee Garrett. A lot of those students are adults who are working, and they will be utilizing personal vehicles to get to and from campus in the evening. So I think it's going to be incumbent on us to provide the required parking for the ease of our students, as well as ultimately during the day for the ease of our staff getting to and from work.
Ms. Salahuddin and then Ms. Van Raphorst.
All right, so Jeff, first I want to say, I see you in our school boardroom, like, you go.
Exactly.
Okay, I was like, look at that. I love it. And so I just want to say fantastic job to everybody that had anything to do with the planning of this and the preparation. I am so excited. I'm so happy for everybody that has worked in this building without sunlight. You're gonna get vitamin D. I'm super jazzed. Like, it has been, especially going through COVID, and we know how isolation affects us, and then the double isolation of being in these tiny, tiny closets that we call offices for you guys with no sunlight. And I know that's like the one thing I don't like about Vegas, just to take it there, but it's like you don't know what time it is. It's weird to be in a space where it's dark when you go in and dark when you leave. Like, that's kind of depressing. So to be able to be in this space with all this sunlight and just really the buildings that everybody, our whole district deserves. And that's going to be a point for later, but I'm really excited, when Jeff, when you come back and we do the needs assessment and we could talk about how do we do this for the entire district, big time, long-term planning. But to this, I'm also really excited for the students that have been in this building. I don't like that some of our students with the highest need are in a building that is of the lowest quality. And so finally having them in a surrounding to where they can focus on educational learning and not like random people walking through the building and, all the other distractions that go along with this very old and antiquated. I know it served its purpose, but now, it's past its prime. And, I'm ready to let this building go and move on to newer things for us and have a building that's more reflective of the district. And new parents who are, I remember when I first moved to Daly City a long, long time ago, and my baby sister was in high school, and I was registering her for high school, and I walked in here and I was like, for real? Like, this is their district office? It is really, or if you're a new hire, I mean, it's a space that's not really reflective of who we are. And so I'm really happy that we have the ability and first the trust of the community who we told this is the plan, and they said, okay, and they gave us the funds, and that we do have the space and land to be able to do this for ourselves. This is a really big job. So, I'm extremely happy that we're moving forward this. I'm really excited to start having meetings with the community around this. In talking to community members about this, the space up here, and the number one thing that comes up, and anytime, like for any Daly City resident, the number one thing that comes up is parking. And we will get huge pushback if we have our employees parking on the street. That is just going to be really, really big. So as I have children and I want them to grow up on the planet Earth, I am all for the environment, but and I take that in consideration in any decision I make, but I'm here to serve as a member of this school board. And while I would love to save every tree in existence, we have to do what we have to do. And as long as we have green space built into it, as long as we are planting trees, which I see that the parking lot has incorporated that in lots of areas, I'm very excited for the progress that we have. I'm also excited to see that the boardroom has space and it's built out for student trustees and us to all sit together and a dais and work together as a unit. So thank you, and I'm ready to move forward.
Ms. Van Raphorst?
I was just gonna add that we have done a lot of discussion around the green space and the landscaping to make sure that it is drought resistant, ecologically sound, and it does increase the amount of native plants that are on the campus than are there right now. And so I'm really proud of the design, and I don't know if there's
That's great.
anything else that Mr. Evans wanted to add around the landscaping, because I'm not as eloquent as him and when we speak about the ecology part of it.
Yeah, it was very well put. We do focus on California native plants, in particular low water, and it's one of the places where we applaud our codes and how we focus on low water use. Probably the one thing I'll echo, or two things. One is that yes, we are reducing the amount of just grass that's out there that has to be watered, and so we're shifting to more native plants. Two is that we are addressing water and stormwater and being good stewards of rain that may fall and having the ability to take that through the bio-retention areas before any of that makes its way further out into the community. And so that's a good positive aspect from the site development.
Mr. Ochapinti?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the other board member input. It is interesting. While I do not agree with the input from a few board members around prioritizing the parking lot over heritage trees in our community, I will say a couple of things. One, Vice President Lee is right. We've talked about this for a couple of years. It's voted on. It's something that's going to happen, and I'm looking forward to a new district office. However, I don't think it needs to come at the expense of the environment in any way, shape, or form that we can mitigate. I think in a collaborative and a proactive way. One of those things is simply preserving the trees that have been here for so long. I do think the community will speak on that as well, and I look forward to that. But I will say a couple of things. One is not an unused piece of land. People still use the park. I'm there occasionally and I see that. I think it's good to have native plants in the area. Any planting of native plants will increase that, I think, unless we're taking them out, which I don't think we should be doing. But there's a lot of grassy area in there that's an outfield to a baseball field, right? And then there's another grassy area which has those trees between the unused tennis courts now, or the formerly used tennis courts and the clubhouse. Another thing too, and I think this is something that taken into consideration, is there are two parking lots nearby. There's the elementary school district's main office, and they have a small parking lot. And then there is Westmore High School's parking lot, which is upstairs, so it's not completely ADA compliant if you're just using the adult education school. Of course, for the rest of our students, special education. But I think that considering the fact that we do have plenty of parking in that area and a parking lot adjacent to the track on the other side, which the community does use as well, I'm sure, we do have parking. So actually my question to Jeff, and I'm sure if you haven't considered this, how many parking spots are being allocated in the current design?
It's a really good question, and I used to be able to tell you exactly how many, and I don't have that off the tip of my tongue. There's a target number of parking spaces, and able to keep closely to that, noting again that we have ample space for trees, as well as accessible parking, as well as electric vehicle charging areas that do impact slightly the amount of total number of spaces. But I can look at the document here and see.
Yeah, I know that we did a lot of work in the beginning determining that number, counting the number of staff members that we would have, and calculating the number of cars that we had on a regular basis with adult school. And we built it to be, we hope, like right size, not too big, not too small, but just to accommodate the daytime use, which will be the largest.
Got it. Yeah, I would look forward to that number. I think some hard numbers will help at this point. But I mean, that's part of the public input process, so I look forward to that. I guess my other request would be this, is that we see some alternate designs. I know there's been a process thus far, but in terms of accommodating the existing trees and just, using our imagination to think about how we can preserve what we have of the park. A large part of the park area, people walk around and of course, have activities, is looking like it's going to be converted to an extension of the current parking lot. There are ways I believe we can preserve those trees. So I'm interested in that, and actually we should have alternate designs regardless. But yeah, Jeff, I would look forward to that. And at this moment, I guess that's the rest of my requests. Thank you.
Okay, thank
So
you.
is there a plan? Are we approving, like, do we?
There's not a vote tonight, but if
Yeah, I
the
get
board
that.
would like to direct us to look at alternative plans,
Yeah.
that would be some direction that we would take.
Would the board like to look at alternative plans?
No.
No.
Yes, yes,
Okay,
actually.
so the
Can we take
board
a,
will
can we,
decide not
can we take
to.
a roll call? Can we take a roll call vote just for clarity on that? Thank you.
No, we don't even, it's not an official vote, Mr.
I know,
Occhipinti.
but you're
That's a
asking
direct-
for direction
so-
from the board. So am I the only person
so the
asking
direct-
for alternate plans?
Okay,
for the record?
so who here, we're in person, but raise your
Right.
hand if you do not want to look at alternative plans. Okay, and you would like to, Mr. Occhipinti?
I would like to see alternate designs. I think that's part of any design process, and development is pretty routine. And I think, Jeff, he knows, he's a professional. So I will ask for that, because I think that one plan and one design from beginning to end is not responsible urban
It was a-
development. That's just
Okay.
policy.
I understand where you're coming from, but the directive is from the entire board, and it's
Right.
4 of us agree we don't need alternative plans. Ms. Presta has her hand raised.
Thank you. I just briefly want to state that this has been a very extensive process,
Yes.
and we have looked at many alternative plans at the cabinet level. So there have been many different plans that have been looked at already to figure out how to accommodate our needs. I just wanted to let you know that many plans were proposed.
Thank you, Superintendent Presta, for
So
that information. Before I just want to say that, if alternate plans already exist and have existed, and as a board, we have not seen them, and the community itself has not seen them, and the rest of the stakeholders maybe have not seen them, then I would suggest that in the interest of public information and our public process, that we can see these during this process and the timeline for public input that we discussed, not just advance one plan. And I see Trustee Salih shaking her head, maybe in disagreement. I don't understand. This is a public process, so we should
Would
move
you like to
forward.
speak, Mr. Ali?
We just move on. I think we're good. He said what he had to say. We've heard it. Let's just move on. I'm
Yeah,
okay.
This
you
is a
know,
community process, President Tahada.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Occhipinti. So there will be a public, community, outreach. So I think that can be addressed at that time. And this is we're not giving any other direction than what has been presented to us now. I have not stated my opinion, and that is, I really appreciate this long process and thorough process that we have gone through. And I have every confidence that this beautiful plan is going to, I don't want our staff and our students to be walking through these halls anymore smelling mildew. And when it's rainy season, you got those buckets all throughout the hallway. How many stains are on these ceilings from water? It's enough. This is a great plan. And so the process will continue. But I'm glad we had a good discourse here. And now we've got to move on. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Jeff. This was great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. And so on to item 7B1, return to pre-pandemic public meeting notice. agendizing procedures, and community participation. And I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Presta.
Okay, thank you, President Tejada. So before you tonight is a proposal, really a request for the board to provide direction to me regarding public meeting notice, agendizing procedures, and community participation as we move forward. And whether we wish to return to the pre-pandemic public meeting noticing and procedures. So what we have been following since the pandemic happened and since the executive order came out that we could have remote meetings, we've been following option 2, which is an in-person, since we came back to in-person, we've been doing this hybrid where we have in-person at a physical location here at Serramonte Del Rey, and we have continued the teleconferencing via Zoom. So there are 3 options that we can do. We can either move strictly to in-person meetings, which would be here at Serramonte Del Rey. We can have a physical location at Serramonte Del Rey and continue teleconferencing until that executive order goes away, which is September 30th. So the governor just let us know that, I think it was yesterday or Friday. So we could do that through September 30th if we wish to, and then we are no longer even allowed to do that. The third option is to have the physical location here at Serramonte Del Rey and to allow community participation, so public comment, available remotely. If we decide to do that, we'll need to make a choice whether we want to allow the community to participate via Zoom or via the telephone. And so just some things to consider as the board discusses this. If we do decide to go back to in-person meetings, pre-pandemic style, should the student trustees be in person? Or should we allow the student trustees to participate remotely as like the community participation? Will we allow presenters to present only in person or remotely, such as Jeff presented tonight remotely? Do you want to primarily have them in person, but there might be instances where we might allow them to do it remotely? Shall we have the student of the month meet in person? These are all these little things that come up as we begin talking about this. So we have received some guidance on the matter, and as I said, the governor suspended, he took action to lift the pandemic-related executive order N0821, and which said that the suspension of various Brown Act provisions will end on September 30th. So we want to keep that in mind. And the other things to note are I will leave it there. And then depending upon what the board decides, we'll talk about some logistics that might come into play. Mm-hmm. You may wish to ask Ms. Baca and Mr. Meyer have done just an extensive amount of work on the logistics and the electronics of it all. We were going to put a proposal before you to contract with PCTV. Mm-hmm. And then we decided to actually get your guidance first before we came back with a proposal and a contract. But the proposal essentially is to go back to what we had been doing before the pandemic, which is to have an outside company, film it and stream it live for us. That way we don't all have to have our laptops open with the Zoom, the Zoom squares. So I will open it up. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, as will staff.
Okay, so I'm going to open it up to my colleagues. Let me know if you'd like to speak on this. Mr. Lee?
Yep. Thank you, Ms. Presta. I think that's some very helpful information. Looking at just taking out the 3 options that were presented in so far, in my mind, the idea of certainly all of us being in person with remote community participation available, I think is an excellent idea, since we know that participation has increased with the remote access. And I think we briefly touched on it at a previous meeting, not just a few weeks ago as well, when we were talking about getting this on the agenda. So I think that's actually very important. as to just my thoughts on some of the other ideas that you threw out there, I would think that we would want the student trustees here, because that's part of the experience as a student trustee, is to be able to be on the dais and to be able to read the body language and show the authority that comes with being, and the respect that comes with being in that position as a student trustee. Student of the month, I would think that, again, we want the individual here because it's being able to take your picture in front of the board with the board members, and to be honored with your peers here. Presenters, that I can understand the case where it may be easier for certain presenters to be remote, and I think that's something that I'm willing to be more open about personally, speaking for myself. So thank you.
Mr. Ochapinti?
Yeah, just to echo some of Vice President Lee's thoughts on that. I think we benefit from a lot in being in person, but given the health status and how that's changed over the last few months, I think we made the most of it. I think turnout is good, has been good in some ways and others. I do think YouTube has been a strong platform for sharing our message and our meetings online, and for people who attend synchronous or asynchronous to get informed. I think looking at options 2 and 3, some version of both. The difference between 2 and 3, I wonder too, just for some clarity on that, as I feel like we are kind of doing some version of both, but I would encourage keeping full access to Zoom. The way we were doing it prior to the last few meetings, I want to say, or a couple months, was that people could attend on Zoom and be seen and see other people in the meeting, which in real life would happen. Much the way we honor a student of the month or have a student trustee, read body language, like Vice President was saying, people who attend the meeting are also important. They're part of the public and they have a voice. And so for them to be able to see each other and of course be seen, I think is an important option that we should return to our public comment in the meantime. But I do think we should do both. We should do in person as recommended in options 2 and 3, and we should do the virtual, maintain that. I know that some municipalities like the LA City Council have returned as of today to in-person meetings, but the public is not there yet. So they're just doing public input via teleconference and Zoom. So that's one way of approaching that. And then, given vaccinations and keeping that in consideration about health and that consideration. So maybe a suggestion could be returning to in-person meetings and with a Zoom and teleconference starting in the fall when our students return, when we have our student trustees, when we have students of the month. If we want to do it over the summer, I'm wondering where the effect or the impact would be. And I also would want to know where the county is. I did reach out to the county, but I haven't heard back yet. So those are my questions. I guess what's the difference between 2 and 3 exactly? And will we return to Zoom being visible online instead of webinar format?
Would you answer that?
Sure, I can answer, and then we can, maybe Ms. Baca or Mr. Meyer can clarify if I don't answer it to you, or I don't answer it well. So number 2 is essentially what we've been doing. So number 2 is we've got the last couple of months since most of us came back. So number 2 is there's a physical location and there's also teleconference via Zoom. And what we've been doing all along is that anyone who's a participant in the meeting, so the board members, executive cabinet, anybody who's presenting, they are seen on the squares basically as a participant. But and then if there's public comment, then they show up kind of when they make their public comment. So that's what we've been doing. Number 3 would be a change. And what that number 3 is that there's a physical location of the meeting, 699 Serramonte. The only people who wouldn't be here would be the public. The public could come, of course, because it's a public meeting at a location. So public is certainly welcome to come here. But if they want to access the meeting remotely and participate, giving public comment remotely, they could. Now, we would need to make the choice of whether we'd like them to participate via Zoom, as they have been, or the telephone. So, whatever, and I think Ms. Baca and Mr. Meyer might have opinions on which is easier, which they think is a better alternative. I think they're just different. But we would be agendizing just the physical location. We would not be agendizing it as a teleconference meeting.
Got it. Thank you for that, that clarification. So just to maybe I guess on my own side, so option 3 is kind of like, we're there in person, but then people call in like the radio. But option 2 incorporates Zoom, like what we're doing right now. Is that kind of similar?
We could, and I'll let Ms. Baca, we could use Zoom for option 3 as well. But option 2 really means that anybody who is participating in the meeting, such as the trustees, executive cabinet, we would be here physically. Sorry, I'm sorry, now I'm confusing myself. That's number 3.
Right,
Number 2 is what's currently happening.
right.
That, the trustee, like Trustee Ostrapinti, you are accessing the meeting from home or from another location. Actually, I'm not sure where you are, but you are not physically here, and that is how it's agendized. But number 3 would be that all the people who are participating in the meeting would be here. Ms. Baca, did you want to add to that?
Yes, that's correct. So option 2 is what we have right now. So we're still in the Zoom boxes, and people can present from, Zoom outside of where we are. Option 3 would have PCTV, and we wouldn't be in the Zoom boxes right now. So it would be returned to what it was before, pre-COVID, where only the speaker would be the one highlighted on YouTube. And so everybody will be here in person, but the public may call in to give their public comment. They do not have to be physically here to give their comments.
Now, I have a question for you, Ms. Baca. So if option 3, if we allow the public to give public comment remotely, how would it work via Zoom? We would do Zoom or telephone, not both.
It would be through PCTV. There might be just like one Zoom account, right?
PCTV would be able to bring in Zoom similar to the way that they used to do presentations.
Oh, okay.
They just bring the Zoom window when
Mhm.
speaking. So.
Okay.
May I add something, actually? We were chatting earlier today about telephone versus Zoom. One good thing about having public comment via Zoom is that we've been showing the timer, which is really kind of helpful and nice for people to see how much time they have. So I think that's one plus that I see. And then conversely, I think that the telephone is really easy for anybody to access. So there's pros and cons.
I could go back to 1 minute warning.
So I think Ms. Salavudin.
Yes, so I'm for option 3. I think if we could try to do it via, so I don't want to have 2 screens anymore.
Yeah.
So I would prefer, if we could do Zoom, that doesn't require me having to have a screen, and then we could just do the long shot and the speaker shot. Because I agree, because you can call into the Zoom, that if you don't have internet, you can call into the Zoom. And I do think that the participation via Zoom is helpful, that they can also see the presentation. If they decide to watch it, they can see the presentation. I also agree with Trustee Lee that everyone else should come in. I would like to give the option to the student of the month that if they would like to participate via Zoom, that's okay. Just because I feel like for certain families, it's a lot to come in, and they're here, and sometimes not knowing what's going to happen before they go, they may be sitting here for a little bit while. So I think that might be easier sometimes if they're at home. But if they want to come in, and get that picture and everything, and I know it's also nice that for some schools, like a lot of the staff come in to support, and I think that's nice. So I think just leaving it up to that option up to them. It's similar with the presenters, I know Dale Scott, like he's coming from a little far, a little bit of a clip. And especially for if we don't know for presenters who we may or may not have questions, but we're not sure, and they come all the way out here and we're like, we have nothing for you.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Yeah, for someone who for sure is presenting, I would say, yeah, they need to be here. But if someone is just here to,
In case
in
we have
case,
a question.
yeah, exactly, I would be fine with that person like joining via Zoom.
Are you done talking?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Mr. Lee.
And just for clarification purposes, option 2 actually is the one that goes away on September 30th.
Correct.
Anyway, because the requirement is that all of us trustees have to be physically here no later than September 30th.
That's
And
correct.
obviously, ideally sooner.
Yes.
Right.
Since we have the necessary.
Right.
That's correct.
Ms. Garrett?
Well, only because Trustee Sullivan brought it up. So I was just thinking about, because we were talking about the student of the month, and I know like we do want the student trustees to be here physically, but I just know, I would like it to not be a barrier for, like that they can't be a trustee if they can't come here, right? Because sometimes it's like, I remember like Trustee Sullivan had to, drive them here or give them a ride, and is it accessible for them to get here to do the meeting? Or, like we do run meetings really late and they still have to get home and there's like a final. So I'm just bringing up the concerns of them being here. Not that I would not want them to be here, but I definitely want to meet them where they're at if it's possible or not possible, or not it being a barrier for them to be able to come in person to do that for the most part,
To respond to that really quickly, we did talk to them about that.
Okay.
The trustees would prefer to come in. They feel like they're easily distracted when they're on Zoom.
Right, yeah, right.
And so, I know, and I
Okay,
think
cool.
they've
Yeah,
had
yeah,
enough,
that's
but what we will do for accommodations, so and the other piece of this is that there's 2 student trustees from every school, almost, we're getting there, but for most of them, there's 2. For that reason, so they don't have, the one doesn't have to carry
That's
that full
awesome.
burden.
Right.
And we have also discussed for the student advisory meetings to flip those,
that's
half in
awesome.
person, half via Zoom.
Right,
To kind of
right.
at least lessen the burden that way. So
That's
those are
awesome.
all things that we brought up to them and
Oh,
have been
that's good.
discussed.
Thank you for sharing that. That makes me feel much,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Thank you.
Mr. Ochapinti had his hand up, and then Ms. Presta.
Yeah, thank you. I guess echo that. I think we should give students the option if the current trustees or this year were like, yo, it's better to be in person, then there's that good input. But I think depending on the incoming trustees and where they're at, just even on given week-to-week basis, that might change. So I think leaving the option open, like Trustee Garrett was saying, like that would be a good idea. I think just in terms of access and even just in general. Also, I know Superintendent Presta had some that I want to go too much, but I just want to say that in terms of options 2 and 3, as trustees, as board trustees, I agree we should be back in person. Latest obviously September 30th, but like at some point before that, probably when school opens or something at least. That video access be provided for those who attend by Zoom, so that they have the option to attend in person and not in person, but I mean visually, if they want to. I think there's one thing as a teacher, I noticed my students that their engagement doesn't always hinder on whether or not, obviously they can be in person, but like even whether they want to turn their camera on. And so a lot of people in the public, I think it would help us in terms of accessing and engaging people in the community to allow them the option whether or not they want to be seen on camera. But I think they should have that option if, when we're returning via Zoom. And I would actually say that while we could have PCTV, broadcast our meetings, that if people were going to access it through Zoom, that when they're in attendance, that at least they be seen if they have, the option to do that. They basically should have the access that we've had as board members to be able to speak in front of the public if they wish. But that would be my request.
For clarification, I'm not understanding the question. Like that's always been the case, that people who have come to the board anytime via Zoom and throughout the period that we've done Zoom, if you have public comment, the folks who are doing public comment they're not panelists, but they can see everything. And then when they give their comment, they're brought in as a panelist so we can see their face. And then they're removed. That's the way it's always been done.
Actually, that's not true. There's a timer that replaces your face. So when the person's speaking, they cannot be seen by other members of the public. They can't see the participants in the meeting, which would be in a room physically if it was in person. And they won't also be able to see, they might be able to see us because they can see us obviously Zoom, but the public can't necessarily see them. So that's not always true. Webinar format actually changes on Zoom where they're not seen. So that's my concern, is that they won't be able to be that.
Okay, so we just changed the timer so that we could split the timer so that you could see their face. But the other part is that,
Yeah.
I don't think that's a huge concern and about, yeah, it's totally possible, yeah.
We're allowing the attendees to talk and not bringing them into pictures.
Yeah.
And then we're doing actions.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that procedure should stay. I think seeing their face, I mean, we see the screen, the timer go down. I mean, we could just, is there a way to split the screen if they want to? But the majority of the time, most of the speakers keep their camera off.
Right.
So I don't know if this is something that I want to devote a whole lot of time to.
But they call in and you can't see them anymore.
Yeah, if they call in, but I mean, I see it. If there's a way to split the screen so they could be half time or half speaker, I'm fine with that.
Ms. Presta?
I kind of forgot what I was going to say. But what I wanted to be clear about is student trustees. So we're talking about student trustees being in attendance. We're also talking about student of the month. We're talking about a lot of different sort of variables. And my understanding of the executive order going away means that the student trustees, that this idea of having remote meetings goes away.
Student trustees aren't elected, so they're not subject to the Brown Act.
Okay, so this idea of a remote meeting goes away, and we can have public comment or public participation in this by this other means, right? So if we decide to have option 3, so what we're talking about tonight, we certainly lose the ability to make a choice on September 30th, right? So it just happens on September 30th. But what's before you tonight is, does the board wish to direct staff to make a change sooner than September 30th to have in-person board meetings? Do we wish to continue in the way we have been in these past few months, having an in-person board meeting and a teleconference via Zoom meeting? So I think that's the question tonight. Do we want to make that move before September 30th or not? And then if we do, what does that look like? Do we want to have people engage via Zoom, calling in via the telephone on the number, or do we, and we can work out those logistics about, if your face is seen or if your face isn't seen and that kind of stuff.
I only have one question. So the number 3 will continue after September 30th, or still it will just be?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So 2 things. One, maybe it is just the one thing. The decision tonight would directly impact what we do on Saturday morning with the board retreat, correct?
Well, if the board decides that, like, what date would you like to do that?
I mean, to me, especially since we are speaking about governance on this agenda for Saturday, that it would make sense that we would already start item number 3 with option number 3, just because it's just going to be a much smaller group of us anyway. So I think it makes sense to be able to do that.
And I think oh, sorry, go ahead, Andy.
And also, since we only have the one meeting in July, that's another good time to test it, because the next meeting we'll have after that would be basically coincides with the start of the school year anyway. So we give ourselves 2 meetings to sort of work out these changes, to be prepared for what we ultimately decide. And it sounds like with the student trustees having decided, at least this group for this year, that kind of takes care of that concern anyway.
Okay. Ms. Saladin?
And yeah, I was gonna say that it would be nice to practice over the summer, like if we could practice with the new method if possible, but I don't know what and then the other part is, I do want to get back to work studies were not broadcast. And because, they're supposed to be a more laid back conversational type of meeting. And so I would like to move to 3 for that stipulation as well, that we have that space to have a, informal conversation that is just us. Is, of course, everything we do is open to the public. But we went to broadcasting everything because of COVID, and there was no way for the public to attend. But now that I would like to move forward with opening sooner rather than later so that we can get back to normal with those other things as well.
Baca?
So we will not be ready on Friday with PCTV. So
We wouldn't need it up because it's a work study.
so it would be July 20th if we were to do that.
Esther?
And I just wanted to sort of reiterate what Trustee Salahuddin said. In the past, when we had Penn TV, they did stream our regularly agendized board meetings. They did not stream our study sessions. Study sessions certainly are public meetings, and somebody could come and, sit in the meeting if they wish to, but we did not stream them.
Right. Okay. Mr. Ochapinti?
Yeah, just a couple points of clarification. One, in fact, our board meetings, study sessions, and like governance, retreat, whatever, those are actually broadcast, and they are on YouTube. So for the fact, that just for the record, they have always been, actually, since 2018, since we've been on YouTube, those are all online. That's a fact. Also, we haven't used Penn TV here. So if Superintendent Press is referring to another district, here we have broadcast our study sessions and related, non-regular agenda meetings, special meetings, of course, and a few other things. And in addition to district videos on, COVID, resources and in terms of bilingual access to things. So and multilingual. So that's the first thing. I would say too, to look around, for best practices right now. If the city of Los Angeles is just starting tonight, I'd be interested in seeing how that goes. There are a few cities around the country who are seeing different levels of engagement, in their own experiences, and so I'll be interested to see what San Mateo County, what the board of supervisors are doing. I'd be interested to see what the city of San Francisco is doing, city of Oakland. Any of the other school districts, obviously the San Francisco Unified and Oakland Unified are other examples here we have in the Bay Area, and other districts in our county. So maybe being consistent with that would be a good idea as well. And I think we can learn from that. But if we only have 2 board meetings over the summer, I don't see why we would rush anything. But like Ms. Baca was saying, if we don't even have PCTV ready on Friday, that means that we have Saturday's study session, which I will request be recorded and broadcast. And we have one meeting in July, is it July 20th? That's the only other meeting before school comes back, right? Then I would say that, okay, thank you. Then let's maybe aim for when school starts that we have that we're consistent with the rest of our students who want to attend in person, give them the option and then go from there. That would be my thinking on that. But I do think we should maintain Zoom and YouTube as a means to watch and to engage. And those are strong platforms. I think we've seen some good results in our community, as other trustees have mentioned, and I would want to continue that to the fullest extent.
Ms. Presta? You had a...
Well, I actually don't want to engage in a back and forth, but.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think let's give direction. So
Yeah.
I think that the direction that I would like to give and see if we can get board consensus is that I want to get back to as close to pre-pandemic as possible, while still maintaining access for the community participation in those meetings that were regularly broadcast pre-pandemic. So that was just our regularly scheduled board meetings, or we had a 1 or 2 study sessions that were broader community concern, where we had there was 1 or 2, but for the most part, only our regularly scheduled board meetings were broadcast and were on YouTube pre-pandemic, and I would like to keep it that way. And then, but with the caveat of having some sort of Zoom access that has phone, and going ahead and starting that, moving forward, post this meeting. So that first board meeting would be July 20th, but all meetings moving forward would be in person. Again, starting with the meeting on Saturday would be in person. And since it's an in-person work study, there's no need for Zoom.
Yes.
I just have a question actually for Ms. Baca and Mr. Meyer. So we had contemplated, because Penn TV is not working yet, we've gone to PC TV, is that correct? PC TV? Okay. PC TV. So PC TV was pretty ready with a proposal on a contract. We just wanted to make sure that the board, what the board was requesting was what we were already thinking. Would they be able to have that contract ready for this Saturday study sessions, that the board might vote on that so that they could prepare for July 20th?
I'm sure we could.
Okay,
And I've already asked them if they're available.
okay,
On July 20th.
wonderful. Thank you.
Are we all good with that?
So,
Absolutely.
so what Ms. Salahuddin's suggestion, that we all go in person starting on Saturday. Can we have a show of hands who agrees with that? Okay, so Mr. Ochapinti, you're in the minority. So the direction is that we are all going to be in person on Saturday.
I'll be attending via Zoom on Saturday as planned. So.
Well, we have just decided we're going to be in person, and if you, so
This is actually
Ms. Presto will explain, and I believe that this was sent out to the board, that if a board member decides that they cannot, it'll be like pre-pandemic. If you can't join in person, you've got to follow the Brown Act, because this is what we're choosing to do. We've all been in person since April. But we have not, as a body, decided to be completely in person. We've allowed for board members to attend by Zoom. But now, starting Saturday, we would like for all of us to be in person. And if you decide you do not want to be, or you cannot, then you have to follow the Brown Act. And Ms. Presta will explain that to you.
Okay, so I'll explain something real quick. First of all, I always follow the Brown Act, so I'm not worried about that. But secondly, the order from Governor Newsom extends our ability to do what we're doing till September 30th. Firstly, that's state law. Secondly, if we're deciding as a board, and I'm telling you, one, I don't think it's a good idea because we haven't had direction from the county or the state specifically on this issue yet. I don't see why we would attend 5 days later, immediately jump to do that. I think the reasoning behind that, just listening to the discussion, is a bit premature and it's not consistent with what we discussed for most of tonight. But also, I'm concerned that if we are returning to in-person, that this won't be recorded or broadcast, which I'm not in favor of either, because I did request that a prior study session be posted to YouTube, which finally it has been. I think it was almost 2 months it took to request that. And at that request, that it took that long to get a study session out, at which I was attacked, I feel like professionally, personally, and politically. I do not think, one, we have even established what exactly we're doing on Saturday. And two, if we are recording and broadcasting it, that needs to be formalized, as well as our procedure for moving forward with these meetings via teleconference and Zoom, which we have not decided tonight either. So are we going to broadcast this on Zoom and record it, and will it be posted immediately after the meeting? That's my first question.
I think what we decided here was that we are not going to stream it. And we're not are we posting it?
No, we're
Study sessions?
study sessions have
We're just gonna
never
be in
in the
person.
past, we're going back to pre-COVID
pre-pandemic,
conditions. Pre-COVID, we never recorded or broadcast work studies. If you can find one pre-COVID and send it to Ms. Presta, and I'll look at it, but we never had, the only way to broadcast a work study was to have PCTV here, and we never had PCTV here or Penn TV here for work studies. We never did. So they weren't recorded and they weren't put on YouTube.
And I think we had one work study where someone from the public attended.
Right. We had multiple work studies where people from
Yeah,
the public
multiple where
attended
they
and
attended.
had comment. We had budget work studies, et cetera, where people came in and participated. So
They can engage freely.
right. But I'm ready to move on. I think we've given direction and
Yes, Ms. Prestahada.
I just wanted to clarify that the executive order N2920 authorizes, but does not require a board to meet remotely during the pandemic. So after September 30th, then the authorization wouldn't even be there, right? So that's the clarification. It authorized us, it did not require us. So the board can decide to transition back to adherence to pre-pandemic Brown Act and provisions. And what that means is that if a trustee does not attend the board meeting in person, if the board decides to have an in-person meeting, if a trustee is not able to or decides not to attend in person, then when we agendize and post the agenda, we need to post the physical location that the trustee is at, and the trustee has to provide access to the public to view and participate in the meeting from their location, and it needs to be ADA compliant. So when President Tejada was referring to the Brown Act, I believe that's what you were
Yes.
referring to, and asking for my clarification on is the posting requirements.
Yeah, because in the past, I believe there was a time where Ms. Salahuddin was calling in. You were
Yeah,
at a
I was
conference?
at the Democratic Convention,
Yes.
and because those people know what happens politically and they know the Brown Act, I had 5 people in my hotel room. They were all strangers, but we were voting on a charter school, and a teacher who was part of a teachers union walked by my room, heard the board meeting, came in, continued to see, oh, this is about a charter, called her colleagues, and all of them who I'd never met were sitting in my room with me during that meeting, and 2 of them gave public comment. So
And you had, and you had posted the agenda
I
as
posted the
required by
agenda
the
as I
Brown Act.
required, and I had my door propped open.
Right.
So it was fun times.
So that's what that means. If the board decides to back to revert to pre-pandemic Brown Act agendizing rules, meeting notices and procedures, et cetera, then that's what that would mean.
And that's what we have decided this evening. So Mr. Ochapinti, you have a question?
Yeah, comment and a question. One to answer Trustee Salahuddin. If you simply click on the link for our district's YouTube channel, you can find multiple examples where our study sessions are in fact broadcast. I'm not lying to anybody here. Anybody in the public, feel free to go online on our YouTube channel and you will find study sessions. And other than regular board meetings and special board meetings, there are other videos as well. But specifically, meetings where the board has attended and held a study session, be it budget, LCAP, or otherwise, those are broadcast. I would actually ask too, because these are public meetings and because we have seen more access and turnout and just, in civic engagement of our meetings because of Zoom, that we lean forward in that direction. It is actually a common discussion right now that a lot of municipalities, be it city councils, school districts, you name it, keep Zoom as an option. So if we're returning to broadcasting in pre-pandemic ways, as a lot of trustees have spoken to, I understand that comfortability level. I think that our comfortability should not be weighed against public access. So we should be doing both. And to underscore that, this is not an action item. This is a discussion item. So the board taking action on this is really symbolic because this is not a mandate tonight. If we're going to take action on this, it should be agendized as an action item. And I would ask that not just on the first day of the reopening of the state, that we completely decide this, as most major cities and school districts haven't even taken action on this yet. So I urge a little bit of caution, not just in the sense of public health, but really in terms of public access to our meetings, and that we observe that process as a district in the Bay Area, trying to do good by that. So there can be no action mandated tonight. For the Brown Act, I can attend to teleconference on Saturday, and if I'm excluded, that would be a violation of the Brown Act by the board, I would think. And I would urge some kind of civility and some responsibility in terms of how we navigate these discussions, because just because we're attending differently right now does not mean that we can't provide the access to the public as well moving forward. We should be able to ensure that anybody in our community can access our meetings, including language. And so we haven't finalized whether or not we can have an interpreter and some translation services yet. Those are considerations I still want to see too, right? Yeah.
Yes,
so,
we do too.
Yeah, so those are my concerns, and I think we can't address them for this Saturday, but I will look forward to meeting everybody on Saturday here on Zoom. It should be recorded and broadcast. I don't see why not, but those are my concerns. Thank you.
Okay, those are your concerns. This is not an action item. This is a directive. This is a discussion. This is nothing that we formally vote on as an action item. This is a directive This is a discussion that we have among ourselves and a directive that we give. And we have given that directive that we are going to go back to in-person fully. And that if you do not, so we have chosen to do that. This is what we have chosen to do. So if you do not come back in person with us, then you've got to follow the noticing of the agenda wherever you are. If you want to attend our work study, you've got to follow the Brown Act. And that's been outlined for us. So that,
I'm ready to move on. If we could just,
yeah, so that is, so if you have any further questions on how to do that, you
Yeah,
can check
don't-
with Ms. Presta.
Yeah, you don't want to violate the Brown Act, President Tejada. You don't want to do that. So this is a public meeting. This is not an action item. This is not an action item. Calling it a directive does not change the fact
It's
it
a
is the discussion
directive.
item. You can't give a directive
It's
to
a
other board
direct,
members if
yes,
it's not
we've
an action
already
item.
given a directive on something else. So I don't see that there's anything new here
President
to
Tejada,
discuss.
please review the law on the Brown Act. I'm just going to
No, I
encourage you.
am quite capable of reviewing the law on the
Yeah.
Brown Act, and we've already spoken to you about it, and I am going to end this discussion. I thank you for your viewpoint. And so hopefully we will see you in person on Saturday. We're going to move on to the action items. So human resources, governing board stipend increase, Ms. Basuino.
Good evening, President Tejada, members of the board. In accordance with Ed Code 35120, we ask that the board consider adjusting the governing board's monthly stipend by the same amount as recent district employee salary increases of 2%, effective July 1st, 2020. The impact of this increase to the governing board's monthly stipend was included in the public disclosure of collective bargaining agreement, which was presented in the May 2021 with the AFT agreement.
We have a motion?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry.
Let's see. So then we're moving to item 8B2. Is that correct? I'm sorry.
Or it's 8C1 first?
Is it 8C1?
8C1 first, yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry, 8C1.
Okay,
Very neat.
8C1, approval of the 2021-2024 Local Control and Accountability Plan. Contain yourself, Ms. Salahuddin.
Okay. Yummy.
Ms. Baca.
Good evening, President Tejada. Good evening, members of the board. So the Local Control Accountability Plan is used by school districts to provide information to all stakeholders regarding the local education actions, services, and expenditures in order to support students and outcomes and support overall achievement. JUHSD's 21 to 24 LCAP was developed meaningfully and collaboratively by a group of stakeholders who firmly believe in fostering an equitable, inclusive, and culturally relevant system for all of our students. And it is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the Local Control Accountability Plan for 21-24.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 2021-2022 budget adoption.
Thank you, President Tejada. The budget was presented for public hearing on June 1st. There have been no revisions since that date, so it comes before the board for adoption tonight.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 8B2, Resolution 2020/21-39, authorization of conveyance of a public utility easement to PG&E.
Thank you again, President Tejada. We talked at the June 1st meeting about the need to convey an easement to PG&E in order to bring gas and electric to our employee housing. At the June 1st meeting, the board adopted a resolution of intent to convey this easement that allowed us to do the public postings and the public noticings that were required. So tonight, we need to do a public hearing, and then the board can decide whether or not to approve this resolution, which would be the end of the process of granting the easement.
Resolution.
We'll be in the public hearing.
Sorry.
That have been agendized,
Cited.
public hearing.
What?
That
It
have
was
been-
posted.
It was
The public notices went up
Okay,
around and in the newspaper.
okay, thank you. I'm going to open public hearing. With no public hearing, no comments, I will close public hearing. Get a motion?
Move to approve resolution 2021-39.
Second. Aye.
Sorry, I was looking at the wrong item. My apologies.
Sorry.
Okay. Consideration of future agenda items? Yes, Ms. Alhoudin?
So we were talking about Student of the Month, and I know I may have said this before, but I was wondering if we could look at the Student of the Month plan, the Student of the Month program, and expand it, keep these, mostly it goes to academic, but can we, and then sometimes the school will decide to go more for growth,
Right.
but can we just make it both?
Can we what?
We make it both, so there's a student, and that's one that's more academic, but also, we do 2 students a month. One is academic and one is about growth, or resilience, or grit. Just so, there's so many students that academically are doing amazing, they're just not getting like 5.0s, you know? And then every once in a while, a school will choose to like highlight that student, but it's not the norm. It's the exception, and I think there's a lot of students that are English language learners, special education, that could receive some acknowledgement that may not be getting the really high GPAs.
Okay, so we want to put that
So
on,
we can agendize that discussion too.
yeah.
That's
Exactly.
because, and it came back to me because TDS
Mhm,
was added,
mhm.
but I know there's so many other students that.
Yes. Okay, let's add that on. All right. So we adjourn tonight's meeting in honor of one person, Merle Ava, mother of current JUHSD employee Jeannie Enriquez, passed away on May 31st, 2021, Memorial Day. That evening at home with her family, Jeannie's sister and children beside her. She was born February 16th, 1935 in Los Angeles, California. She is survived by 2 sisters, Magdalena and Josephine, all of her grandchildren from the US and the Philippines. Merla, affectionately called Nanay, was known for her delicious lumpia and chicken adobo. Her favorite hobbies were crocheting, sewing, and cooking. She retired 20 years ago from the San Francisco Unified School District as an assistant house parent. She will be greatly missed. We, the Jefferson Union High School District Board of Trustees, send our condolences to Jeannie, the Enriquez family, and a host of loved ones and friends.
I want to say too, like, Jeannie is a light. She is the sweetest soul I have ever met in my life. And so thank you to her mother for raising such a beautiful daughter who just gives and gives and gives and gives and gives. And I'm so sorry to hear about this loss.
So sorry, and I had been at the district office like last week and I saw her, I had no idea, and I just want to give her a big hug, and she always calls me tita, or auntie. So yeah, she is light, she is light. So move to adjourn.
Again.
Aye.
Night.